If you're just joining us, welcome. You're in the right place. This is Ask the Expert, and we're talking today to Judson from Click Nonprofit. We're going to get started in just a minute. I see people are kind of rolling in right on the hour, and I want to give everybody a chance to come in and join. If you have questions for Judson, we're going to be using the chat function and the Q&A. We're going to start out with some introductory questions that give an overview of Google AdWords, but I know you guys probably want to go a little bit deeper. So feel free to throw those into the chat throughout or right now, and we'll make sure we get to them. So Judson, I'm going to go ahead and welcome you if you want to turn your camera and your audio on.
Great. Thank you, Katie.
Yeah. So before we kick off, can you kind of give us an overview of you, your expertise, tell us about Click Nonprofit, and then I'll let you kind of do a little overview for us.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me on. Yeah. So my name is Judson, and I work with Click Nonprofit. And really what we do is we're all about helping nonprofits with the Google Ad Grant. So we help them maximize this grant to drive the right people to their websites, to actually be able to get to their ultimate goals of, hey, donating and bringing in volunteers and whatever that ultimate goal is, to use this Google Ad Grant to bring the right people to your website. So that's what we're all about, and we're so happy to help nonprofits, whether you're looking for someone to help manage that Google Ad Grant for you, or just give you tips on how can you best maximize that grant on your own if you're managing that. So I'm really happy to be here, and I really appreciate Do More Good and Nonprofit Hub for having us on this training session. So thank you so much. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we're going to go through a little bit here. I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. All right, here we go. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pull this slide up here. I'm going to move my camera down here. What I want to go over is, Google Ad Grant Management. That's what we're going to kind of talk through today. We're going to leave, like Katie mentioned, as much time for questions as possible. So I'm really just going to take, 10 to 12 minutes to go over, what is the Google Ad Grant and how do you properly manage this to really ideally maximize that 10,000 spend that you're given, but really bring the right people to your website who are actually going to convert. So really quick, before we dive into that, I'm going to go over just the basics of, for those of you who don't really understand much about the Google Ad Grant, we're going to go over what the Google Ad Grant is. We're going to go over how to go about applying for the Google Ad Grant, and if you're even eligible for the Google Ad Grant. So first things first, what is the Google Ad Grant, and why do we use the Google Ad Grant? The Google Ad Grant, again, it's a $10,000 per month grant that's specifically for Google search ads. So if you're a 501c3 nonprofit, you would be eligible most likely for this grant, where you can spend this $10,000 every single month on Google search ads. And it's all about, you're attracting the right people to your website through this grant. And it's not display ads, it's not video ads, it's specifically search ads. So when someone's typing something into Google, you can show up at the top of that Google search. Now, why do you use this grant? Well, first of all, you can attract thousands of new visitors to your website every single month. And that is, you're bringing the right people to your website every month as well, because they're actively searching for your organization. And that's the key here, is that you're targeting people who are actively looking. So it's not like a picture ad on Facebook or just on the web, where you're targeting people based off of their interests. The Google Ad Grant, you're actually targeting people who are actively looking for what you have to offer, people who are actively looking for a nonprofit like yours. So that's what's so powerful about Google Ads, Google search ads, and the Google Ad Grant, where you have that budget for it. Now, some of you might wonder, am I even eligible for this Google Ad Grant? It's really quite simple. If you're a 501c3 nonprofit organization, if you're not a government entity or organization, you're not a hospital or healthcare organization, If you're not a school, academic institution, or university, you are most likely going to be eligible for this Google Ad Grant. The other thing you want to make sure of is that your website is secure. So most websites are. You want to make sure that you have that HTTPS in front of your website URL in order to be eligible for the Google Ad Grant. Next is, how do you apply? So we talk to so many nonprofits that are intimidated about applying for the Google Ad Grant. They never even start the process just because they wonder, oh, how difficult is it going to be to actually apply? It's really quite simple. It's literally filling out 2 forms in order to apply for this grant. First, you sign up for Google for Nonprofits. And this is, at google.com/nonprofits. It's a 5-minute form pretty much that you're filling out, just basic information about your organization. Then you're going to get an email, most likely from TechSoup, that helps Google for Nonprofits verify your organization. They'll ask for your 501c3 determination letter, most likely, just to prove that you're a nonprofit and that you're a representative of your organization. You'll send that to them. A couple days later, you'll get approved for the Google Ad Grant. And then you go into your Google for Nonprofits account and you fill out another form that's probably going to take you 5 to 10 minutes. Then you submit that form, and another 2 days go by, or whatever, a few days, and you have the Google Ad Grant. So it really is as simple as that. You're filling out 2 forms. You don't need to be some professional to apply for this Google Ad Grant. Next is, how do you maximize the Google Ad Grant? So this is really the meat of what we're wanting to get into. How do we maximize this full 10,000 spend? How do we bring the right people to your website? On average, nonprofits, they say, only spend about $300 of this $10,000 budget they have every month. So while the Google Ad Grant is amazing, and you have the potential to spend $10,000, it doesn't mean you're going to spend $10,000. So that's where you really need to know how to manage it properly in order to bring the right people to your website, and ideally maximize that budget as well. So we're going to go through a few steps on how to actually maximize this grant. So number 1 is, you want to start with keyword research. And this is where you're figuring out, what are people actually searching for on Google that's related to your organization or nonprofit. Next is, you want to create search-focused content. So after you figure out what people are searching for on Google, you want to create content around that. So you want to create either a blog post or a landing page that's based off of that highly searched keyword or search term that's related to your nonprofit. And then next, you're going to want to create a clear call to action on that page as well, that will get someone to take that next step toward your ultimate goal. And a great way to do that would be through, let's say, a downloadable content offer, where you ask for an email in exchange for a downloadable piece of content, and then you can get them into your email marketing campaign. So we're going to step into each of these a little bit more on the next slides. So back to keyword research, you want to start here. And some of you might wonder, what are keywords even? Keywords are the words or search terms that people type into a search engine, for example, Google, to find what they're looking for. And now what you can do is you can use there's a ton of different keyword research tools. A lot of them are completely free to use. And with these research tools, you can figure out what keywords people are actually searching for. And you can figure out, okay, what are these keywords? How relative are they to your organization? And then you can figure out how many people are actually searching for each of those keywords. And then another thing you can do with these research tools, you can figure out how competitive is that keyword. So you want to find out how many businesses or nonprofits are bidding on that keyword. And that's going to really determine, how competitive or how difficult will it be for you to show an ad for that keyword. Now, we go into this keyword research in depth on a post on Nonprofit Hub. So that link is on the bottom of this slide. So I definitely recommend checking that out if you really want to figure out how to actually go about this process doing that keyword research. So that will help you really understand what are the steps, what tools to use, and really go about how do you actually apply this in your Google Ad Grant account. Next is you want to create search focused content. So first of all, we would just want to talk about what search focused content is not. It's not blog posts focused on your nonprofit's impact or stories from recent events. Those are incredibly important for your organization because that's very important for your current donor base, right? To figure out what's the impact of your nonprofit. So definitely keep putting those out. Those are important. But what we want to focus on are blog posts focused on keywords. So we want to focus on blog posts that are focused on what people are actually searching for on Google that's related to your nonprofit's mission and services. So to continue on this, creating search-focused content, you want to start by choosing your keyword. And this goes back to the keyword research, where you want to find a keyword that has a high search volume, low competition ideally, and then also that is highly relevant to your mission and organization. So one example, let's say you're an adoption organization and you're trying to figure out, how do I get someone to my website with this Google Ad Grant? One idea is you come up with a piece of content like a blog post on how to adopt a child. Now, this is something where if this organization is wanting to bring people in, when someone searches for this, there's probably a ton of searches for this every month. But you're not going to show up most likely with your homepage for a search like this. So this is where you create a blog post on this. And with this blog post, you can give details on step-by-step how to actually go about adopting a child. And then we'll go into this later in terms of next steps or a call to action after that. Next, we kind of talked about this. You want to create that blog post. So you want to write a blog post that focuses on that chosen keyword. And then really you want to put yourself in your searcher's shoes. So it's important to use both the data and just common sense in terms of a ton of people are searching for this keyword, but then you got to think, okay, if I'm putting myself in my searcher's shoes, if I were searching this, would I be interested in this nonprofit when I landed on this page? So that's another thing to keep in mind. And then you want to follow SEO best practices. So this is search engine optimization. So this is where it's, if you follow SEO best practices, this will help your blog post rank organically on Google, and it's also going to help your ads actually show on Google as well. So this is something where you can get more information on this just by Googling it, SEO best practices for blog posts and landing pages. Next is you want to have a clear call to action. So once you get someone to that page, you want to make sure you have a next step for them to take in order to get toward your ultimate goal. So for these call to actions, we recommend making them very relevant and easy. And what we mean by this is, for example, your goal, your ultimate goal as a nonprofit is to bring in donations, right? But most people won't donate right away when they don't know enough about your organization. So once you get someone to that landing page or that blog post, you want to focus on small, easy steps that are relevant to the visitor's goals. So if they get to a certain landing page and they're reading about a certain topic, you should have for example, a downloadable piece of content on that topic that they're already looking into that they could get more details about. So that's something where you could get an email in exchange for a downloadable piece of content. And that's a great way to get them into your email marketing campaign, where you can nurture that lead to the point where they know your organization and they'll be much more likely to donate or get involved or complete one of your ultimate goals that you have. And then lastly, we want to make sure that we have conversion tracking set up and there's regular optimization. So once you have all of these in place, you want to make sure that you're actually tracking these goals. So you want to track the results of your ads in Google Analytics, and then you need to make adjustments as needed. So you might have to make adjustments to your blog post or landing page. You might want to make adjustments to the wording that you have in your call to action. All of this is in hopes to increase those conversions in the end. And then next is going to be regular optimization. So you want to make sure that you're regularly optimizing your Google Ad Grant account. First of all, you want to make sure that you keep it compliant. So the Google Ad Grant has, a ton of compliance rules that you have to keep on top of in order to keep that account actually active. So in order to do that, you want to make sure that you're looking at that regularly. You're making sure, the click-through rate is above 5%. You want to make sure that the quality score of your ads are above 2. Those are things you want to keep on top of just to make sure that you keep that grant active. And then finally, you want to test out different ad copy and keywords to get better clicks, better click-through rate, and better conversion rates in the end. So this is a really important part, is constantly be testing out new keywords, taking away keywords that aren't actually providing value in the end, that aren't actually getting people to convert on your website. So all of this can be done by, setting up conversion tracking in Google Analytics and really monitoring that and testing out different ads and different ad copy in order to get that point where you're bringing in the right people to your website, you're maximizing that $10,000 grant, and you're getting conversions on your website. So that's what I wanted to go over today, and I want to leave it open to questions. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off my screen sharing so that we can continue.
That was a good overview, and we already have questions coming in.
Awesome.
I'm going to jump the line though, because I have kind of a big one. What is the time commitment? What should organizations consider before they take this on?
Yeah, so if you're really wanting to maximize that full 10,000 grant and bring the right people to your website, what we recommend is spending 5 to 10 hours per month on that Google Ad Grant. Of course, you can spend less than that, but if you're wanting to get to that point where you're really maximizing that, making sure that you're actually getting the right people to your website that are converting, you want to constantly be looking at that and spending that time in order to get there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, great question.
Okay, are there situations where organizations shouldn't go for the grant? Either they don't have that 5 to 10 hours, maybe they don't have a person to dedicate. And another thing I hear all the time is we don't blog. Like
Yeah,
we're not writers.
absolutely. No, that's a great question. So while we recommend having valuable content, that's really what's going to get you to that point of getting the right people to your website. I would say absolutely still go for the Google Ad Grant, even if you can't create that content, if you don't have the time for that. You might not maximize that full, $10,000 grant. You
Sure.
might not drive all the people you're wanting to, but hey, it's free ads. So definitely start. And even if you're only spending $1,000 a month of that, or even if you're on average spending that 300, you're not paying for that. So
It's totally free, people, and it takes 5 minutes to apply. So yeah,
it's incredible.
definitely. Okay, so this was an interesting question that came in, and this is a good one. Can your keyword be your organization's name or brand name?
Yes, that's a great question. So it can. So as long as it's not the keyword of a competitor, it can be your brand name. So we have had it where organizations have done that and they've gotten like an ad disapproved. If that's the case, you just need to contact the ad grants team and say, hey, this keyword is our organization's name, and they'll fix that so that you can actually bid on that. A case where that you might run into issues. Let's say your brand name is just a single word, and that's what I'm talking about. You're not allowed to have single word keywords in the Google Ad Grant. But if your brand name is a single keyword, you are allowed to use that. Again, even if it gets deactivated, you just need to communicate that with the Google Ad Grants team.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Another good question. Do ad grants automatically rank below paid search ads?
Great question. Yeah, so this is something that the whole community was wondering for a long time. I think it was 2018 or 19, when the head of ad grants came on and basically answer this question for a lot of us. Yes. So basically how it works is you have this $10,000 budget to spend on Google Ads, but how it works is it does not compete with people who are paying their own money. So essentially what that means is if you have a for-profit business or a nonprofit that's spending their own money, and they're trying to bid on one keyword, and you're using the ad grant, you're going to show below them. So it basically serves after the paid advertisers go first, and then the ad grantees would go second.
That makes sense. That
Yeah.
they're
And
paying.
that's the thing where there's tons of keywords where they're most likely not going to be competitive enough where you're not going to be able to rank at all. But if there is an extremely competitive keyword, which a lot of times in the nonprofit world that doesn't end up being the case because most nonprofits would use this ad grant. If that's the case, then you can absolutely spend on a paid account for that one keyword if it's extremely valuable to you and you're not able to rank with the ad grant. So
Okay, good advice. So we're getting a lot of questions about really specific use cases, and I'm wondering, are there some basics of what you can't use the grant for that you can cover for us?
yeah, so a lot of times we have organizations that are wanting to drive someone to a different website. Now, other than the nonprofit's website, that is allowed as long as you get you submit an additional domain request and you prove that that website is owned by your nonprofit. That's okay. But sometimes they'll want to cross promote or promote some other, sending someone to a completely different website. That's where that can't be done because it's not actually driving them to one of your nonprofit's websites. So that would be one thing. Another thing is if you're trying to promote, the idea of the ad grant is you're benefiting your nonprofit. And if you're promoting things that are not actually benefiting your nonprofit, that's going to be another red flag, and it's just not going to work. Even if it's something, let's say on your website, but you're promoting something that doesn't have to do with your mission, that's where you run into issues. So you want to make sure that you're promoting things that have to do with your mission, and are really getting to your ultimate goal as a nonprofit.
Very good.
Yeah.
Can you talk to us a little bit? Again, I'm trying to batch the questions because you guys are all asking things kind of along themes, which is good. It tells us what the presenting holdbacks are. Talk about conversion tracking. So what should we track? How do we set it up? How do we get started?
Yeah. So with conversion tracking, you want to set that up ideally in Google Analytics, just because it's such a powerful tool to use. So you would link your Google Ads account with Google Analytics, and that's something. There's tons of videos out there that you can look up on how to actually link those, and then you want to create goals in Google Analytics. And these should be goals that are valuable goals, like someone landing on a thank you page, someone landing on let's say you're a nonprofit and you sell products that help your cause. You would want them, when they land on that final store purchase page, that should be a conversion. Or if someone donates, ideally what you should have set up, the easiest way to track that is have a thank you page after someone actually donates. So if someone hits the button, donate this amount of money, it should take them to another page, and then you can track that thank you page at the end and say anyone who lands on that, they've donated, or anyone who lands on that page, they've downloaded this free resource. So those are really great conversion metrics to have and goals to have in Google Analytics. So you set those up in Google Analytics, and then you transfer those over to your Google Ads account, and you can actually optimize your ads based off of those conversions. So you can tell basically Google Ads, hey, we want these conversions, pay more for clicks that are most likely going to convert in the end for that conversion. So I hope that answers that question.
Yeah, it does. It does. Guys, if it doesn't, feel free, throw follow-up questions into the chat or the Q&A. So somebody commented, our account is currently deactivated for not complying. Are there specific steps we can take to help bring it back to compliance? Is there a specific guide or something similar you would recommend?
Yes. So usually the ad grants team will send you an email and give you a reason why that's been deactivated. Now, if you didn't get that, or if they just weren't clear enough to your organization, what I would recommend is reaching out to the ad grants team. And what you can do, if you go to how to contact AdGrants team, or how to even contacting Google Ads. You can contact Google Ads and they'll transfer you to the AdGrants team. And then I would just say, hey, we want to reactivate our account. Would you please look into this and let us know what we need to do? And they'd be glad to let you know what that is. The other great thing, just recently, what the AdGrants team is able to do now is they're actually able to go into your account for you and make changes that are needed to get your account reactivated. So there's a form, and this could be something that we could send after the meeting, if that's something. Feel free to reach out to us or to Do More Good, and we can send you that form. But you can fill out a form and actually give their team permission to go into your AdGrants account, make the changes that are needed, and reactivate your account.
Okay.
So it's really gotten easier and easier over time.
So what are some of the main things you see people having compliance issues with?
So click-through rate is one. So if basically what click-through rate is it's the relationship between clicks and impressions. So if 100 people, so the click-through rate minimum is 5%. So if 100 people see your ad on Google, you need to make sure at least 5 people click that ad. Now, this is something that was introduced a couple years back, and it was kind of a shock to a lot of the AdGrants community, because the national average across all organizations is about 2% for click-through rate. So the AdGrants team really wanted to make sure that you were creating valuable ads, which makes sense. You want to make sure that whatever you're showing, it's going to be valuable enough that people actually click it. So that's one thing that people get their AdGrant deactivated for. And when that happens, basically what you need to do is go through your account and pause, the keywords that are too low in terms of that click-through rate. So that's a big one. Another one is quality score. So if your ads are just not up to quality, if let's say your keyword doesn't match your ads, or your ads don't really match the landing page that someone's landing on, that drops your quality score, and you can get your AdGrant deactivated that way as well. So those are some big ones, I would say, that typically people get it deactivated for. A lot of organizations that used to have the Google Ad Grant years ago, there used to be a rule where you had to check your account every month, and if they didn't do that, they got it deactivated. So we've seen that a lot. Organizations reaching out saying, "Hey, can you help us get this reactivated?" And that's another big reason.
It's so easy to apply for, but it sounds like the follow through, the compliance is about as intense as any other grant.
So it is something that it does require your time and your attention. And I would recommend anyone who is managing the Google Ad Grant on their own to look through. You can basically just type in compliance guide Google Ad Grants into Google, and I would memorize that list. Make sure you understand what you need to do to keep that ad grant active. As long as you understand all of those compliance rules, you should be good, as long as you keep checking your account each month and make sure those stay up to par.
Yeah. And guys, just so you know, we will be throwing resources into the follow-up email, which will also have the video recording of this session. So two really good questions I'm going to tie together. Somebody's asking, so if I don't blog, should I even bother? And then another said that they're interested in using video. Does it have to be written content that you use for this?
Yeah, so I mean, we know that search engines are becoming much more powerful, and it's becoming a lot smarter, where it can recognize some video content as well. But what we always recommend is text on a page is really the most valuable part in terms of telling Google what's on that page. So if you have a video, that's great. Have that video on that page. But what we would recommend is having a brief description under that video of what that video is all about. Some people do a brief description, like a paragraph description. Some people actually transcribe that whole video. That's another route that you can go as well. But what we recommend is having some kind of a description on that page, so that Google can see when someone searches for this word on Google, the ad also has that word in it, and that page that they land on has that word throughout as well. And that'll really tell Google that you have the right valuable content.
That's good. Okay, next question. I have a heart for this question because the same thing happened to me when we first started. She said, so I was accepted to use the ad grant program. I spent time setting up an ad and somehow it was created in a paid area and not through the nonprofit channel. Do you have any counsel to help other
Yeah,
people avoid this?
that's tough.
Been
Yeah,
there.
that's a great point. And that's something when we're managing accounts, or if a nonprofit sends us an account, they say, this is our Google Ad Grants account, they send it to us to manage it. That's the first thing that we do, because it's the worst thing if you realize, oh shoot, this is actually a paid account and has a credit card attached to it. So what I would recommend is doing is going into the settings on your account right away. Check the settings. Go to you want to go to billing settings and billing summary. And in the billing summary section on that main page, you'll see a message that says this account is not billed. You want to make sure that message is there, and you want to make sure that it's not Visa ending in 5473. That'll tell you that it's a Google for Nonprofits account. It's not being billed. And yeah, that you don't want to spend $10,000 of your own money.
I think we
Also,
uncovered a secret funding method of Google. They have all these nonprofits submitting ads, and yeah, it's
and
confusing.
that's the other thing, is that you want to make sure that you don't ever, if you're going through this application process, you get the grant, don't ever enter a credit card. It seems self-explanatory, but it has happened quite a bit where nonprofits will enter a credit card. The moment you enter any kind of billing information, it's no longer a Google Ad Grants account.
Good to know. Good
Yeah.
to know. Okay. This person, so Stacy wants to know, with regards to conversions tracking, what do you mean by optimizing the goals in Google Ad Grants after transferring the goals from Google Analytics?
Good
Can you go
question.
deeper?
Yeah, so let's say we have the goals created in Google Analytics. We transfer those goals over to the Google Ad Grants account or the Google Ads account. Then to optimize for those, what we mean is, first of all, making sure that the ad copy, so whatever you say in the ads, are going to be relevant to whatever that end goal is, right? So you want to have words in there indicating that, hey, this is a landing page, a free download, or something about donating. That's going to help. But the big thing is you can switch the bidding strategy now. So it used to be where you could only spend $2 per click, up to $2 per click. Now, if you switch to maximize conversions bidding strategy, you can spend over that $2 per click limit. But also what that does, it links your campaign with certain conversions that you've set up in Google Analytics. So you want to use a conversion-based bidding strategy, and then basically that will optimize for the goals that you have set up in Google Analytics.
Okay. Another good question. I've heard this one before. Will my account be deactivated if I haven't had time to create any ads? They were just approved, but they haven't had time to get it set up.
Great question. No. So that's the easy answer. That it used to be the case where you had to check your account every month in order to keep that compliant and active. That's not the case. So if you get the Google Ad Grant and you don't have time to start creating those ads right away, you don't need to worry about that being deactivated. What you do want to make sure is that eventually, I think it still is the case where if it's something like 15 months of no ad spend whatsoever, the ad grants team will see that, okay, you're obviously not using this, and we'll cancel out the account. But keep in mind, if your account is ever deactivated, you can reach back out to Google and get it reactivated. So it's not something where you get it deactivated and that was your only chance.
Mm-hmm.
You can always reach back out and say, hey, we want to get this reactivated. So
Good to know. Okay, we're getting a lot of questions, and I'm thinking back to when Do More Good first got started with this, and it's so intimidating. Not the application process as much as, can we take this on? So for total transparency, Nonprofit Hub and Do More Good both work with Click Nonprofit, because we don't have capacity to do this. We are a nonprofit too, and we are like beyond lean. So talk to us about, I mean, I know what it looks like from our perspective to work with you guys, but talk to us about how you help. And if you can, we have people asking for, estimates on what that would cost. It's up to you if you want to throw some numbers around that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so what we do is we help, you know, basically everything that we've talked about in this video. That's a lot of the methods that we're using is we're helping you maximize that grant, both in ideally spending that $10,000 per month, but most importantly is creating valuable ads that people will actually come to your website and convert, right? And really get to those ultimate goals. So that's what we're doing. We manage those ads all ourselves. We can even help you with that application process as well. Um, what we do, and this is a big part of that kind of makes us unique, is that we're not just helping you maximize that Google ad grant and creating those ads for you and managing those, but we're actually providing recommendations on content as well. So this is where that search content that we talked about, it's so important to have content related to what people are searching for. We do that on our side where we're doing that keyword research and we're figuring out what are people searching for that has to do with your organization, how relevant is it to your organization, how many people are searching for it, what is the competition like, and then we provide those recommendations to your team to write that content. So depending on the package that you would choose with Click Nonprofit, either we would give you those recommendations and you would fill out that write that blog post yourself, or we even have services where we could actually write that blog content for you. So we have a team that understands SEO, that understands writing content that's going to actually rank on Google as well. To get to the pricing, our pricing ranges anywhere from $300 a month up to $800 a month. We have a 300 package, a 500 package, and an $800 package. And each of those, if you have more questions on those, I'm happy to send you an info packet and you can learn more about that later.
And I want to encourage the audience to think in terms of a development person, a staff person who would bring in hundreds, thousands of leads each month, because that is how our team thought of it.
Absolutely.
It's a significant budget item, but it has the potential for significant impact. And the fact that Google is just awarding these huge sums of grant dollars is amazing. It's a really good opportunity. Okay, so
Thank you.
getting back to kind of a little bit more technical questions.
Yeah.
Kelsey's asking, we're in the process of creating an ad and we're asked for the campaign URL options along with the tracking template, final URL suffix, and custom parameters. Can you explain what that means? There's a
Yeah.
lot of lingo.
Yeah. So that's where when you're setting up ads, you can set up, it's up to you. So this is something you actually don't have to do that. So this is if you're setting up, this is so that you can easily track those ads on the Google Analytics side. So you might want to create custom parameters where you type in what's the campaign name, what's the keyword being used, things like that, so that you can actually track all of that on the Google Analytics side. And you would do the same thing with if you were creating Facebook ads or Twitter ads, things like that. But the great thing about Google Ads is that because Google Ads and Analytics are the same company, they have a great way of doing that automatically. So if you go into your Google Ads account and you go to settings, account settings, and you make sure that auto tagging is set up, essentially what that does is that Google Ads will tag all of those themselves. So you won't have to set all of that up. And the great thing about that is that it actually pulls in more information than if you were to try to put in those custom parameters yourself. So you don't have to, so all that to say, you don't have to put those custom parameters in. That's up to you and your organization.
Very good. So we had a question earlier about whether the funds roll over, and we have another question about how many months will the grant last.
Yes,
So is there a
we get those questions a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically how it works is it's broken down to a per day budget. So you have 10,000 a month. but it's actually broken down to $329 per day that you get. And if you don't spend that $329 that one day, it actually does not roll over. So it's either a spend it or you lose it type of thing. So each day, ideally, you spend $329. And then in terms of how many months it lasts for, there's no end. There's no end to the Google Ad Grant. So, as long as the whole program is still running, the whole Ad Grants program is still running, and as long as you keep your account compliant, you have, $10,000 a month or $120,000 a year in advertising into infinity. So
Talk to us a little bit about, because I remember the first time I heard this and just not knowing the terminology. Talk to us about the ad spend. So, like, how is that money spent? What's the mechanics behind
yeah,
that 300 and something per day?
great. Yeah. Um, so it all has to do with clicks on your ads. So, a lot of times with like Facebook ads, a lot of times you'll pay for impressions. You'll pay for how many people see it. The great thing about Google Ads is that you don't pay anything until someone actually clicks on your ad and goes to your website. So that's how that 10,000 is spent. So, $10,000, you have a $10,000 budget per month. You're not going to spend that $10,000 budget unless people actually click on your ad. So each time someone clicks on your ad, so you see when you go on Google, typically the first few results are an ad, right? Those are businesses posting those, and every time you click on one of those results, that business is usually paying Google a couple of dollars. So that's with this Google Ad Grant, is that you get that budget, and every time someone clicks on your ad, you're spending anywhere from $1 to $10, whatever that cost per click is for that ad.
So, well-designed landing pages are kind of a secret to success. Am I right?
That's very true. So it's important. There's a lot that goes into a landing page. From, yeah, you want to make sure it's well designed. So uh, especially nowadays, so many websites are aesthetically pleasing. They're well designed, and a lot of people, especially like the younger generation, they'll come across a website, if it's extremely outdated or that landing or it just doesn't make sense, it's not intuitive, they're going to click away, they're going to hit the back button, right? So you want to make sure that it's well designed, and really you want to make sure that it has the right content. That is what we always emphasize. That's one of the most important things, is making sure that when you have an ad out on Google, someone is searching for a specific topic. When they click your ad, you need to make sure that when they get to your landing page, that's what that landing page is about. You don't talk about something different. You give them exactly what they searched for, and that's the most important thing.
No bait and switch.
Yeah, right.
Okay,
Exactly.
so a couple really good questions. How many ads can you have running? And is there a limit to how much you can spend on an ad?
Great question. There's no limit in terms of how much you can spend on that ad. You can spend that $329. There is a limit. That $329 a day would be that limit. So you can have as many ads as you want or as little ads as you want. The only exception to that is that this is a part of the compliance rules, is that each ad group that you create needs to have at least 2 ads. So as long as you meet that compliance rule, we have 2 ads per ad group and 2 ad groups per campaign, then it's up to you how many ads and how many campaigns you want set up in your account.
It's so complicated. I know the people at Google are like genius, so this is probably all purposefully complex, but man, it's a lot.
Which, it's everything. There's so many different products and services out there. It's complicated if you don't spend enough time in it, and that's
Yeah.
where a lot of the nonprofits we work with, they're intimidated by it because they haven't spent enough time in it. So that's where, either if you want to spend the time, it won't be intimidating to you anymore, right? If you spend enough time learning it, that's awesome. If you don't want to spend that time, that's where you need to find someone to do that for you.
Need to find the right partner. So last year, and I don't recall if last year was the first time or if it, has been ongoing, but they increased the grant to 20,000 for, I believe it was December and January, or November through January.
Right.
Do you think that will happen again?
It's a good question. It's one of those things where there's a lot of things that happen in the ad grants that no one knows.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we hope that they'll do that again. That was a new thing they introduced, and it was because of giving season, right? So it was for December and January. So I would say I'm hopeful that that will happen again. I think that they wouldn't have introduced it. I'm sure they were testing it out this past year, and yeah, that was incredible. We saw so many of our accounts went from spending that 10,000 to spending 20,000. So spent 40,000 over those two months. So I'm hopeful that they'll do something like that again.
I am too. I am too. So another great question from Kelsey. I know the limit was shared, but is there a recommendation for how much to spend on an ad? Does spending more on one ad really maximize that ad?
Yeah. So it in terms of how much you spend on an ad, there's not really a recommendation. Um, it's going to depend a lot on how popular what the demand is for the keywords for that ad. How popular that topic is, how well that ad was written. So there's not necessarily a recommendation on how much one ad should get. When we create ads for our clients, I mean, we've got dozens of campaigns and ad groups and hundreds of ads a lot of times in that account. So it's really, the more you can build out, the more ads that you can build out in that account, the more likely you are to be able to utilize that full Google ad grant budget. But there's definitely not a recommendations on how much one single ad should spend.
Yeah. And I think I can't remember what article or who said this, but I think in the nonprofit world, we're so focused on raising support that we think we need to build ads to get people to donate, but really we need to get them to our website. We need to get them in the room before we approach them about donating.
Absolutely. That's a great point. You got to get their foot in the door first. It's something where, and this is a conversation we have with a lot of nonprofits when we first talk with them. They're wanting to use the Google ad grant to get donations, which that should be the goal, right? I mean, that's the ultimate goal for your nonprofit. But when someone doesn't, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but when I come across a website for the first time, I'm probably not going to donate a ton of money to that organization without knowing who they are, without having some connection, right? So that's where absolutely you should focus on those baby steps first, of getting their email and getting them into an email campaign to nurture that lead. Steps so that they can get to know your organization better.
And I just remembered it was actually you who said it. So I'm sorry, I almost
Okay.
attributed it to somebody else. It was the first time we connected, and you were talking about how nonprofits typically come wanting to raise donations, but it's a bigger picture. It's a bigger process.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So you work with nonprofits all the time. You onboard them all the time. What are the top three kind of misses or mistakes you see happening?
Yeah. Ooh, good question. Well, when we're actually going to help them basically acquire the grant, you mean, type of thing, or just the whole process, I guess.
Or if they're already using it, but they're coming to you because they're not maximizing it or something's not
Got
working.
it. Got it. Okay. I mean, one thing is getting their account deactivated. They're like, hey, we don't know what to do. It's deactivated. We help them with that process. I would say another big thing would be content. And that's where they don't have enough content on their website. They might just have, there's a lot of nonprofits that come to us and they just have one landing page, just one page of their website. And we just have to tell them, I'm sorry, you can't maximize that full grant. Of course, you can spend some of it, but you need valuable content. So I would say that's one of the biggest things is helping nonprofits understand the value of content, because content is going to help you both with the Google ad grant, but it's also going to help you rank organically on Google as well. So you need to have valuable content based off of what people are searching for to really build your online presence as a nonprofit. So I would say those would be the top two. I think another one would probably be, I guess that them trying to manage it on their own and just not being able to actually spend that money would be a big one.
So great question from Julie. Again, this is one I think that's a common question. Can you advertise, can you use your AdWords for fundraising events or raffles? And
Yeah.
I've heard somebody with product sales too. So talk to us about those more transactional things.
Yeah. So in terms of events, what you want to make sure is that that event in the end is going to benefit your nonprofit. So we've had organizations before that where they want to send someone to a concert, like an event concert or something. Um, Sometimes that's okay, sometimes that's not, because if that concert is benefiting the nonprofit, a lot of times they'll send them to like they'll have a landing page on their website, but that landing page then directs to like Eventbrite or something where there's that event. And sometimes that can be disapproved if you can't, it'll be disapproved because it's leaving your website, but you basically need to prove to Google that, hey, that is going to benefit you. So if it's going to benefit that artist in that concert, that's a no-go. You can't do that. So that's that. What was the other part of that question?
Um, so raffles or like a product
Or
sale.
product. Yeah. So the other thing would be, again, it comes down to, does it benefit your organization? So we have a lot of nonprofits that sell products. Um, and obviously as a nonprofit, you're going to be looking for donations, but there's a lot of nonprofits that get some of that through products as well. As long as that, it fits your mission and it's something that you're actually going to be benefiting whatever you're supporting in the end, that's okay to do. In fact, products a lot of times are great ways, because it's a lot easier to get someone to purchase a small product than to have someone make a huge donation right off the bat.
Yeah.
So it's another way of like, getting email leads and then selling products that have a smaller price tag is a great way to get someone into the door.
A good way to think about it. So if you have unrelated business income tax on anything that you're doing, that's probably not going to qualify for a Google ad grant. So anything
Yeah.
that's off mission or ancillary to mission. Okay, so we have about 8 minutes left. Guys, if you have questions, now is your window. Throw them into the chat. Judson, I'm going to ask you kind of a broad question, but best practices, like nonprofits who are nailing it, what are some distinct things you see them doing it?
So yeah, best practices would be uh, making sure that it's really about making sure that you're providing the right ads to what someone is searching for. So you don't want to spam the system. You don't want to just, a lot of nonprofits get the Google ad grant and they want to just spend that full 10,000. That's their big goal. But at the end of the day, what's the point of spending that 10,000 if you're not bringing the right people to your website? So best practices really would be focusing on those steps that we talked about in the beginning, of making sure that you're targeting the right keywords. When someone is typing in a certain keyword and it has to do with your organization, that's the kind of keyword you want to target. And then making sure that the ads and whatever you're driving traffic to all match up. So those will really help your ads to get a higher quality score. And really your account will be following better practices that way. And when you have that higher quality score for your ads are going to be more likely to show at the top of the Google search as well.
Mhm. We
So
did have several people ask if you would recommend some specific tools for keyword research.
yeah,
And what we can do is connect after, and I'll throw those in the follow-up email, and we'll give them a link over.
okay. So I think the easiest route to go, and the free route to go, would be to go with the Google Keyword Planner. So that's actually included in your Google Ads account. So once you get the Google Ad grant, you would go into your tools section, and you would find under that planning section, there's the Keyword Planner. So that's another thing that on that post on your site, that goes into detail on how to use a keyword planner and so on. But I would say that would be the number one. I would say start there. There's also tools like Moz, SEMrush. There's Uber Suggest is another one. Uber Suggest has some free features as well. But
I heard of one, is it Ask the People or
Ask the People. So we
yeah.
haven't used that, but that's another that's another one that the great thing is that it's very visual, that one.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you can absolutely use that one as well. So the great thing about, I say, the Google Keyword Planner is that it's a Google product and you're using a Google product. And so it's going to show you like the competition, not necessarily for organic ranking, but it's going to show you the competition for that keyword specifically for Google Ads, which is really beneficial. So I definitely recommend starting there if you're looking for one.
So one last question. I'm going to make this the last one. It's from Brenda. I was hoping to use part of our ad grant to help or to get people to use our text to help service. Can I use an ad grant for this purpose when I'm not trying to drive traffic to our website?
So what you can do is there's a call extension that you can add on ads. There's also there's a message extension. So you can definitely, if you want someone to just message or text, this is really popular for like crisis hotlines and things like that, where if you want it to be just right on the Google search, you can absolutely have an ad extension is what it's called. So when you go to create your ad, you would make sure that you have an ad extension that has a call button where they can just click the button right from Google search, or there's a messaging extension where you can literally, they can type that message right in there, and that message can either go to your email or it can go to a phone number that you have, set up in your Google Ads account.
I had no idea.
Yeah,
Brenda, that was a great
that was a
question.
good question, Brenda.
Yeah. So Judson, thank you so much. Everybody, I'm going to make sure that Judson's contact information is in the follow-up email, as well as links to other resources. Again, I want to be totally transparent. We work with Click Nonprofit. We're big fans. They've taken a
Oh, thank you.
huge piece of our workload away and maximized it. And that's really, I think, what people are hoping for when they pursue this grant. So
Oh, thank you, Katie. I appreciate that.
yeah, well, let's get back to doing more good.
Awesome. Thank you. Take care.